Hi everyone, Nicholas Buffett here from a quite chilly Cyprus today. Today's tutorial is all about Microsoft Access and data entry forms, how we can create them, how we can modify them, change them, make them user-friendly, and what is the purpose of creating a data entry form. Now, primarily, this tutorial is focused for students taking the Cambridge ICT IGCSE examination, the 0417 exam, but it's absolutely fantastic for anybody who wants to learn how to create forms. I'm not going to be covering things like creating a table, queries or reports. We've done that already. So make sure you like and subscribe if you want to keep up with any other new videos. All the other videos on Access you can find in the playlist of the channel. So today, what is it that we're doing? Well, essentially, I thought I'd start the other way around today, and I've got a sample form and it's basically what we're going to be creating together. And I thought I'd show you what the end product would look like first. So what is a data entry form and how do we use them? So I'm going to start off with opening this table. We can see I've got two tables here. There we go. Now we can see at the table format, it's organized data in tabular format in a table. And of course we can modify, we can change data by clicking on any one of these cells. If we want to add a new record directly in the table, we will go all the way down to the bottom, and this last record here, this last row, you can see this little asterisk here. Well, this is where we would go and add the next record. Now it's good to understand the structure of the table, and basically this is going to help us understand how a data entry form works. So this is the very first record. If I go all the way to the top, and the first record here we can see has the code 973001, and these are all the fields that we've completed for this record. At the top we see the field names, and it's very important that we know what the field names are. Now if I go down, this is the next record, and this is the next record, next, next, next. If I move up, I'm going to the previous record, previous record. This very first one is the first record. This one down here is the last record. And this one is where we go to add a new record. Now, all of these we're going to see when we're going to implement in a form. So why not just add the data directly in a table? Well, it may be that we don't want our users to have direct access to the table. It's not a very secure way of entering data. Not that it won't enter the data, but for security reasons, we're giving access to the users to the entire table. This particular table has only got a few columns. If we had, say, something like 20, 25 columns, it will be hard to keep track as we're going along to make sure we're staying on that correct record to modify the one that we want to modify. Also, it's very easy for people to delete large amounts of data or copy the entire data. So we try to limit the access to the raw data of our database to users. And to do this, we use a form. So how does the form work? Well, this form here we can see is displaying this very first record here. Now, I've got some navigation buttons, but even without the navigation buttons, always a form at the bottom. You've got down here, you can see this is record 1 of 41. This is actually a very nice little area down here because it displays how many records in total there are in this table. And I can click this, go to next, and as you can see, as I click this, the data in my form is changing. And if I go to previous, that goes backwards. This button here goes to the very first record, like we did before in the table, and this button here goes to the very last record. So if I click on that one, you can see ends in 041. If I go to the table, the very last one, there it is there. That's the last record, 041. This one here with the little yellow asterisk, well, that one is to add a new record. So when I click on that, that's going to jump my form to the very after the last record, which is the add new, and we can see that here. So after this last record, there's the asterisk. That's what we're looking at now. Okay, so essentially what a form does, it will take the record that it's focused on and display the fields or the fields that you've chosen, and it will display them in a form, making it much easier to see the data or the data about that particular record individually. And we can edit it or we can add new ones. So that's the purpose of the form. So let's just close this table. It's always good to close tables or any items that you're not using in Microsoft Access. Make sure you close them. So what have I done to this form to make it so special, let's say? Well, first of all, I've added my name at the top as a label in this top area of my form. I've given my form a suitable name, which is making it very clear to the user what this form is for. It's a secondary storage data entry form. So here I'm going to be adding things like hard disk drives. I've given it some color. I've highlighted the titles, let's say. These are just labels for the data. So these can be actually changed. And you can see here it says connection. I've actually spelled that wrong. But you can see here it says connection brackets int ext, just to say this is for connection types for internal and external drives. Whereas in the field name, it just says connection. That's not very clear. So the good thing with a form, we can modify these labels here to actually display a little bit more information. Now, if I just go back to this previous, I've adjusted the size of all of these text boxes displaying the information so that they're suitable. So if I'm going to add a new record, I'm going to use my fancy new button here. I can see that the type of entry that I'm going to add in this text box is actually quite small. So you need to make sure your text boxes are an appropriate size. If the text box is too big, it sometimes confuses the user and they think that, oh, have I typed the right thing here? Why is the text box so big if I'm only typing a few letters? So it's good to change the size of the text boxes to be appropriate for the data they're going to contain. Not too big, but not too small that it doesn't display all the data. Okay, the other thing that I've done here is this. So I've got here in the connection internal external, I've made a drop down list box, and you can see this drop down list box will allow me to choose one of the two items. But I've also added a second column here. Now this second column is giving me a little bit more information. But if I select, for example, this one, what it's going to add in my database is whatever I've got in the first column. There you go, external. It doesn't have, and it just gives me that. If I put internal, internal. So this is just some extra information. We're going to see how to create this. The next thing I've done, I've made another drop-down list box here with two items. This one I've modified slightly, so you can't actually type something which is not in the list. So this is actually known as limit to list. So if I was to type something else in here, let's say TTTT, and I go to the next record, it's going to give me this error message. And this basically prevents me from typing something which is not in that list. Do I want to edit the items in the list? No. Okay, so I'm just going to press escape there, so it goes back. Now, this is great because it prevents the user from typing or mistyping something in. They just choose the item in the drop-down list box, and you know it's going to be correct. And if they type something by accident or press something on the keyboard by accident, it's not going to enter that data. Remember the saying in databases, garbage in, garbage out. So we want to try and avoid entering garbage into our database. The last one that we're going to have a look at is this one here. Now, they haven't actually used this. I think I've seen this once in an examination before, but what I've done, this is another drop-down list box, but the list here is dependent upon this table here, interface. So basically I've made a little table, and let's just look at the design of that table. Yeah, let's just click on yes. So it's just one field, short text, and that's it. Okay, and what I've done, I've listed in here just the things that I want to have in that list box. Now, the good thing about doing it this way is if I want to add another item in here, or I want to remove an item, I don't have to go into the back end of Access and look at the properties and add things by code or by typing them in. I could just simply go to my table and add something. Let's have a look at this. If I was to type here, I don't know, just the word hello, it doesn't make sense, but there you go. I'm going to close that. Now, if I close my form and open it again, we can see here, there you go, it's added that item in there. And if I want to remove something, I can very simply just close this, go to my interface, right click on the word hello here, delete that record, yes, and now when I go back to my form, that one has vanished. Okay, so it's very easy to keep a longer list or a list that you're going to be updating, updated and up to date by using a table instead of typing everything out again and again. All right, that's basically it. The rest of it is formatting. The last one here is stock item. This is a Boolean Type, so it's a yes no. I've actually selected this one here with the option buttons or radio buttons, and as you start going to next or previous, you can see that it will flick over from yes to no. There you go, that's a no, that's a yes, and you can choose whether it's a yes or no simply by clicking here. So that's a user-friendly data entry form. So why don't we get started by creating one? Okay, so let's go to the top where our menu is. We're going to go to create, and from create we're going to choose a form wizard. We're going to create the form wizard because it's going to set up all the objects for us automatically, and then we just need to modify them and edit them. We need to make sure we're choosing the right table for which we want to create the form. So here I've got two tables. There are the two tables over here on the left, computers and interface. I want to create a form for this one here, computers, and I can see all the fields in that table listed here. Now I can add them in one by one. I can choose which ones I want to add into the form. I don't have to add all of them. Let's say you've got a field which is an automatic number, then every time you add a new record, it's going to add that number for you automatically. So you may not need to display that. But if you do want to add everything in, you can click on this double arrow, or you can just double click on the items that you want one by one. You could always bring things back again, so double click on them and it will drag them over, or you can use the arrows. I'm going to click on the double arrows here to add all of them. The next step obviously is going to be next. I'm going to choose a columnar type of form. The other ones I've never really ever used, and I've never seen them called up in an exam because they kind of defeat the purpose for me. A columnar form will give you access to one record only, just that one row, whereas the tabular and the data sheet gives you access to many of them at the same time. Could be useful. I've never had a use for it. Justified will give you for one record only, but the format is just a little bit harder to read. So we're just going to stick with the columnar for now. You can mess around with the other ones. Next. And then the last one is just, you know, when you finish creating the form, how do you want it to open up in the form view or in the design view? I mean, we can always switch backwards and forwards anyway. So I'm just going to click on finish. Okay, so here's my form. It's generated it for me very, very quickly. And if we compare the two forms, we can see they're very, very different. We can see how this form is slightly easier to use. Okay, now we're going to jump straight into the design view. So in 2019 version, down over here, you can see right where my finger is, you can see we've got the little icons where you can go from form view, you can go to layout view and design view very, very quickly. I'm more traditional. I like going from here, from the home menu, and going to view and choosing one of the views here. Either one, I'm going to be using both. So first step, I'm going to go into design view. Now, what I want to do just to make these things stand out just a little bit more, I'm going to click in the body area here, in this wide area here. I'm going to go to format, I'm going to go to shape, fill, color. You can see we're going to be able to do this with nearly everything inside this form. Just gives it a background. I'm now going to click and drag over the labels. The labels are the parts on the left, and we're going to discuss these in a second. And I'm just going to give a fill color slightly darker for those. I'm going to go to the font color. We're going to make that white. We're going to make the font bold. That just makes everything stand out just a little bit more for me. It's going to be easier to see when we're going to move things around as well. Now, you can, of course, format these as well. It's entirely up to you. If I just give a very light grayish color there, or very, very light blue, there you go. Okay, now then, so what I'm going to do next is start formatting this, making it friendly. The title can change. I can simply double click on here and just call this, I'll say, storage data entry form. Okay, and we can click away, make that a bit bigger, make that just a little bit narrower, drag this up, and just make it so it looks a bit nicer. Now, if I want to add my details at the top, what I want to do is I need to go to my form design, and I need to use a label. I'm not going to use a text box, and this is where many students get confused. A text box is basically an object with a label. This is the label and this is the object. And when you actually type something in here, let's say I put my initials, NP, and then view this, or let's just use this button here. It's trying to display something from a field, and that's not what we want. So let's just go back to design view, delete that. So what we want to use is a label. A label is just the text, and anything you type in there is fine. Okay, and I'm just going to put my IWA center number, CY127, and the candidate number very quickly. There we go. Okay, and that's going to be displayed at the top. And again, you can format very easily the background and the font at the front. I'm just going to make this some black text so it stands out a little bit. There we go. Okay, next step. These text boxes here, I'm just going to click and drag over them to select all of them at the same time. They're very, very big. They're too big for the data that they hold. So if we look at the data, we can see the data only comes up to about here. So about 3/4 of those text boxes are not being used. So by clicking and dragging over these, I can select multiple parts of the objects. And I'm going to move my mouse. Well, first, I'm just going to drag this form and make it a little bit bigger. There you go. So I can see the edges here. I'm going to place my mouse here until it turns into a left and right arrow, click and drag, and that's going to change the size of all of these objects at the same time. And I can bring my form back again. Now I'm not going to make my form smaller because I'm going to be adding some boxes here. Sorry, some buttons. Right, next step. Next step is we need to, if we have a look at our sample form, we're going to do this object here, the drop-down list box or the combo box. Now we want this to be something that the user can click on and select one of the two items. But this one has got this double column entry here, okay? And when you click on one of the options here, it's only going to add the value in that first column. You see, external. So let's go and do that. We're going to do a manual one. So here's the connection. That's the one that we want to do. So I'm just going to click on that, select it and press delete. And we're just going to get rid of that object totally. Now I'm going to go to my form design. Here's my combo box. I'm going to click on that and simply really anywhere, I'm just going to draw a small rectangle. And I get this pop-up wizard here, this dialog box. So here, this one here is all about creating the combo box based on another table. We're going to see that next or in a short while. I want this one. I'm going to type the values I want. So I'm going to click on next. And for the connection, I think the options are internal or external. So I'm just going to type those in. External. The next one is internal. Now, we can see here I've only got one column, because I've stated one column. So I'm going to change that to 2 columns. And when I click here, you see I get my second column, column 2. And I can type whatever I want here. Let's say external, it's going to be, I don't know, some kind of SATA connection. Internal is going to be, well, actually external is going to be USB, USB type C, a type C port. And then we're going to, for internal, let's say that's going to be a SATA connection. Okay, and you can add some more text there. And I'm going to go to next. Now the question is, which one of these 2 columns is it going to use to get the data and add it into the field of that table? So am I going to be storing the value external, internal, or am I going to be storing the value USB type C or SATA? So I want to store what's inside column 1. I'm going to go to next. And the next step is I need to tell Access, once the user's made the selection, where is it going to store that selection, in which field? So I'm going to choose from here the field connection. There we go. So when you select something, it's going to store it under the connection field. Go to next, and that's it, finish. Now here's my object here. You can see I don't have a proper name here, so I'm just going to double click in here and type connection. And I'm going to add just a little bit more detail here, as I did in my example previous. And external or internal, close the brackets. And I'm going to click away. Now you can see these two are a little bit mixed up. And if I try to move one, it moves the other one with it. So if I want to move them separately, you can see this little gray square here in the top corner of each one of them. So if I click on this one here, I can actually click on that and drag it away. In fact, if I move this on top of the other object, you can see that gray square there. Can you see that? So if I click on that, I can just drag that over here. And if I click on this one, I can drag that over here. Now doing this manually is very hard to get everything aligned. So we're going to look at the alignment at the end. Now I want to format this to look the same. An easy way is I'm going to click on this one. This is what I want it to look like. Go to the home menu, click on the format painter, and then click on this one. There we go. And I can do the same with this one here, which has got that kind of little background there. There we go. Okay. So now if I go to my normal view, you can see I've now got my double column and my entries here. Really easy to do. Okay, the next one that we're going to have a look at, if we look at the sample form, is we're going to see this one here. But this one, again, it's only 2 options, HDD or SSD. And we're going to make sure that they can't type something else in there. For example, in this one, if someone was to type, say instead of external or internal, and they type, I don't know, let's say value of semi-connect, I don't even know what that means, and press enter, you see now that, if I go back one, can you see it's actually stored that? I didn't want it to store that. So if I open my table, we look at that, it's actually saved the word semi-connect. And that's because I didn't modify the properties to say that it can only use values in the list. So I'm just going to go close that, go back and just change that back to, let's say, external. So I'm going to demonstrate this on this one. I'm going to go from here again, design view. I'm going to delete this one here, type. Again, combo box, draw a rectangle. Now I'm going to be typing the list myself. I'm only going to use one column, so here, hard disk drive or SSD. Click next. Now this time I'm not going to tell it which field it's going to store the value in. I want to do this through the properties, so I can show you where you would go if you had an object, you didn't attach it to a field, how you would do that. So I'm just going to click on finish. Now again, I'm going to format this with type. So I'm going to put type. I'm going to select this one here, go to my format painter and make that look the same. Drag this over here. And can you see this one says unbound? Now that simply means that this object is not bound to a field. So if I run this now, you can see I'm not getting any data in here. If I go to the next record down here, there's no data because it's not linked to a field. So let's go and link it manually. So I'm going to select this object. I'm going to go to my properties on the right. If this area here isn't visible to you, let's say it looked like this, all you have to do is just right click on anything in this form. So if I right click on the background here and choose properties, the properties will open, and anything I click on, it will display the properties for that object. So I'm going to click on this one here. Now let's have a look at the values I've got. So I've got things like different categories: format, data, event, other, and all of them. So I'm going to go to the one that I'm interested in, that's data. Now the first row here is control source. Control source is basically which source or which field is going to be controlling this object. So I'm going to click on this, and I can see here, there you go, all of my fields. I want it to be linked with type, and there you go. The next one that I want to do is to look at this one here where it says limit to list, and it says no. So if I change that to yes, now I'm not going to be able to add anything which is not in that list. So this properties area here is also going to be very useful for you when you're taking screenshots to show evidence that you've done something. Let's say show evidence that it is limited to list. Well, again, this object here, go to the properties and you will take a screenshot of this. The other one I want to show you is this. Can you see that at the top of this form, it actually says computers? And I want it to say, for example, entry form. I can't change this from here. Okay, so even if I close this now, if I save this, and over here, and I double click on this one here, can you see it still says computer? So if I was to rename this object to, let's say, data entry, now what happens when I open this? The name of this form hasn't changed. It still says computers because it's given it the title of the table which is being used, which is used to actually create the form. So how do I change this? Again, I'm going to go to my form, go to design view. Now again, from the properties, what I want to do, I want to change the properties of the form, and to select the form, we click on this top little corner here, this top left corner. So if I'm here, can you see there's no black dot in that area here? So I'm going to click on this square here now, and now I can see the properties for the form. Now be careful, the record source that we see here is this form is linked with the table computers. I don't want to change that. If I change that to interface, then it's going to try and link these fields to this table over here, interface. That's not what I want. I just want to change the name of the form. So I'm going to go to format, and here I've got the caption and it says computers. So I'm just going to change that to data entry. Okay. And now if I go to my normal view, can you see? There you go. There's the label for my form. Okay, let's go back. design view. The next one that I want to do, if we look at our sample, is this one here, interface SATA. Now, this is again another combo box, but this is the third type of combo box. Now, in this case, I'm linking, and I've displayed this already, this combo box to this table here, interface. So again, very easy to do. I'm going to delete my interface from here. Again, go to form design, go to combo box. I'm going now, this time instead of choosing this one, I will type the values. I'm going to stick to this first one here, and it says I want the combo box to get the values from another table or query. So I'm going to select that one next. Now I'm going to tell it which table. So if it's a query, let's say it's a result from a query that you want to get this information, then you would choose queries. If it's both, then both. I'm just going to stick to table, and I want it to get the information from this table here, interface. Next. And now it's going to show me, well, which fields do you want to pull in? Now, I've only got one field, interface, so I'm just going to add that one. Next. Again, I'm not going to bother with ascending or descending, or you can if you want, just choose interface, ascending or descending. It's entirely up to you. Go to next. Here it gives you a sample of what it looks like, so you can see it's going in descending order, going from Z to A. Next. And where am I going to store the value? So again, I can either do this from here and choose interface and click finish, or once it's finished, I could easily have clicked on this, go to the properties, go to data, and change the control source here to whatever it would be. Okay, so that's that done. I'm going to again rename this interface. Let's get rid of the caps lock, interface, and I'm going to again click on this one, home, format painter, and make sure that looks the same. Use that little black square there. There we go. And that looks pretty much okay. Now, if I want to lock this so it's only limited to the list, again, I need to select it, go to limit to list and click yes. And now when I run my form properly, there you go. I've got my list based on that table. So we're going to modify now the stock items. Let's just bring that up. So next thing I want to do is select this stock item and delete it. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this one here. This is a an option group. Okay, now I'm going to click on, now many people get confused and they start putting this one because they realize the symbol, it's an option button, but that only gives you one button. It won't link it with another one. There are ways of doing it, but the easiest way is this one here, this XYZ, this option group here. So I'm going to click on that, and again, simply draw a rectangle somewhere, anywhere in this form, and there we go. Now, all I have to do here is just type the label that you want for each option. So for this one, I want the words yes and no. So I'm going to type yes, oops, yes, and go down, and this one's going to be no. And if I wanted another option, maybe in this, I can just carry on typing. You can see we've got the new record here. Go to next. Now, do I want a default choice? Now, default choice is when you're going to start a new record, you're going to add a new record. Do you want one of the two, the yes or the no, to be automatically selected? That essentially means you're not really giving the option of not choosing one of the two. And that's really the understanding of radio buttons. It has to be one or the other, or at least choose one from that list. So you don't have to. If you're not required to and they haven't asked you to, then that's fine. I'm going to put yes, and I'm going to say that the default choice is a yes, this one here. So I could choose the other one in my list. If I had more items in my list that I chose here, then those would also appear here. So I'm just going to put yes. Next. Now from here, I'm going to actually say what value is going to be stored. Because it's a Boolean, we can't actually store the word yes, and we can't actually store the word no. So what it actually stores is just an integer value. Now, what the integer value that will be, under normal circumstances, a yes is a -1 and a no is a 0. And all the papers which I've seen, they will always ask you if they're going to tell you to add the value, to put a -1 and a 0. But you could choose something else. They won't ask you to do anything else because they give you the raw data of the table, which you import anyway. And that data for the Boolean value has already been inserted as -1 and 0. So they're not really going to ask you to change these, but they will ask you to set them to -1 and 0. Next, Am I going to store this data in another field? Well, yes, I am. So there we go. It's stock item. Next. And now you can just mess around with this a little bit to display what you want it to be. Is it going to be option buttons? Do you want checkboxes? Do you want toggle buttons? So it actually highlights one of the buttons. Do you want it, you know, the different effects, the flat, shadowed, and this, that, the other. I'm just going to leave it as an option and leave it shadowed. And now I'm going to go to next, and that's it, finish. There is my option group. Now again, let me just make this background a little bit lighter. Okay, so now I'm going to move this around a little bit. So let's just make this so they stick together there. I'm just going to change what's in there, call that stock item. And I'm just going to stretch this box out a bit. Instead of having them top and bottom, I want them side by side. So I'm just going to make that box a little bit bigger. Select the no and the option for no. Drag, oops, nope, let's just undo that. So I just want the no and the option for no there. Drag that, put that next to the yes. Now I'm going to make this box just a little bit narrower, and there we go. So now I can move all of this. So if I select that and just drag that here, it's going to bring everything together, and now I can just move this with the gray square over there. Okay, now again I'm going to click on this format painter. These can get a little bit fiddly, a little bit of practice. I'm going to select the yes, or actually format these ones as well to look the same, and the yes and the no, and the other ones that I didn't do there and there. Okay, now what we want to do now is I want to, let's say, let's just go have a look at this. I'll go to normal view, so we can see here now as I start moving forward, if I get to a record that's got a no, it should, there you go, it actually flips over to the no. Okay, perfect. Goes back to design view. Now what I want to do, let's say I want to show evidence that I've actually added the value -1 and 0 to these. Well, I'm going to, from the design view, click on the option, the circle, not the label. This is the label. This is the one that's actually storing the data. And if I look over in the properties area in the data, so remember I need to go to data, I can see that option value is -1. And if I click on this one, then option value is 0. If I click on that box, I can see it's got the control source stock item, and the default value is -1. So these are all the screenshots I can take. Now usually all your screenshots will really be from this tab here, data. Okay, let's move on now to creating the buttons. Buttons are really easy to do. So I'm simply going to go to my form design at the top. Here is the control for the button. If I click on that, I simply draw a rectangle, and I get this dialog box. Now all of these are categories for different buttons. Okay, so this category, this is for buttons for navigation. This category is for operations, and you've got different ones. I'm only going to focus on these two. You can mess around with the others. So let's do navigation, and I'm going to go to next and go to previous. Remember at the beginning of the video we saw what go to next and go to previous is. So I'm just going to go to next record, click next. Now from here I can either use one of the pictures that it's got here. I can go to show all the pictures. I prefer, for making it user friendly, I like using text. It's easier for people just to read what something does than identify the image. And that's it really. Just click on finish, and then I'm going to do the next one. Draw a rectangle, record navigation, go to previous, and that will be that one. Next, again I'm going to make it text and finish. And let's go to add a new, let's go add a button, and I'm going to say record operations. I want add a new record. So again, I'm going to make that one text and then finish. Now the delete record, I'm going to do one more. Let's say we want to delete a record, then let's just do an image here. So from here, I've got the two basic images. Oh, that's an add. I want to cancel that. I want to delete that one. Let's just go back again, and we want to delete a record. So record operations, delete record, next. So there you go, I've got the trash can. And again, if you want any other pictures which are available to you, you've got all of these here. But I'm just going to leave the trash can and click on finish. So there's my image. Now, all of these now should work. And if I go to my design, if I go to my form view, there you go. I can go to next record. I can go to previous record. And oh, there you go. There's my drop down list box. This one here is using 2 rows because it's slightly longer. The text is longer than you need, so you get it. So that's not really friendly. So I'm just going to go back and just make that one a little bit longer there. Let's just see what that looks like. Form view. There you go. So next record, previous record, and now I just need to align everything together. So let's go to design view. I'm going to select these here in one go. I'm going to go to arrange, align, and I'm going to say to the left. Look at that, already aligned everything for me straight away. And I'm going to select all of these. Again, align to the left. It's going to align them like that. Now, if you don't like this alignment, you can actually undo that and only select the ones that you want. For example, if I select these ones here and then go to align to the left, there you go, it's aligned that one there, and the rest are aligned. Now, if I select these ones, there we go, and I go to align to the left, there you go, it's aligned those ones as well for me. So instead of aligning them all together in one go, you can do that. Now, that's really all there is to it. I don't like the back, so let's just change this background up here. Make that a, let's say, I don't know. I'm going to go with orange, I don't care. There we go. Wow, that really stands out, doesn't it? And let's just make this text here white. And you can mess around with this. There we go. Okay, and there's my form. I can go to my form view. And there's my data entry form. So much better than before. Now, of course, you can modify, you know, different things and make something red, make something bolder. Let's say the price, that's a bit long. I can easily just make that a bit shorter and highlight this one here to make it stand out and make the fill color, I don't know, that orangey color there. And let's just choose that one, just the one. There we go. Make that a fill color. And I can change the color of the text for this one instead of the writing and make that same orange. So there we go. Okay, so you can do all sorts of things, and that is a user-friendly data entry form. We've got a decent title, we've got our details, we've got navigation buttons, we've got everything aligned. We've changed the size of those input boxes so they make a little bit more sense. We've used drop-down list boxes to limit to the list and so that the user can choose what they want instead of typing, avoiding mistakes. We've got limit to list here, so we can't add something else. Have a look, we didn't test that. Let's say I'm going to put HHH here, press enter. It's going to give me this error because I actually put limit to list. Do you want to edit the items list? Nope, it's just not going to let me. There we go. And I also did that down here. I'm limiting everything to the list. Now again, we saw if I wanted to add something to this list which is connected to this interface table, I simply add it in this table. Type D, which doesn't exist now. I simply close my table, close the form, click yes to save, open this form again, and now it should be here as well. Where is it? Type D, there it is. And it should also be my other form, my sample form. So if I open that one up, so save the record, drop changes. Okay, so if I open this one here, and there we go, I've got type D again. Okay, that's it. I hope you found this useful. Everything you need to know about data entry forms and why we use them, how to make them user-friendly, and where you're going to go to take your screenshots. If you found this useful, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.